Welcome to Personal and Professional Best. The live stream will begin in just a few minutes. All of us at Supreme Lending are truly honored that you've taken the time to join us today. Today's show will culminate in another game of Smart. That's Supreme Mortgage and Real Estate Trivia. You'll want to pay attention and even take notes from the content in today's show because the information shared will show up as questions for Smart at the end of the program. During the game, you'll be competing as an individual and as a part of your real estate office for thousands of dollars that you'll be able to designate to the charity of your choice. So we won't just be having fun competing, but helping make the world a better place. Let's go ahead and get registered for the contest. On your mobile device or laptop, log on to www.supremebest.live. You'll want to go ahead and type in the www, as that will ensure that you can log on from any device. Next, you'll register your name, email, and select your team name from the drop-down. Then, well, that's it. Just keep your browser open and you'll be ready to play along with Smart. During the game, you'll want to quickly select the correct answer, followed by Submit Answer, as the scores are determined by a combination of accuracy and speed. Thank you again for joining us today. We are honored to have you with us on this journey to becoming our personal and professional best.
Research shows that adopting an attitude of gratitude, simply expressing appreciation and being more thankful, can measurably improve your overall well-being. For example, studies prove that gratitude can increase happiness, reduce depression, and strengthen resiliency. Grateful people often experience reduced blood pressure, less chronic pain, increased energy, even longer lives. People who purposefully express more gratitude report higher self-esteem than those who don't, and they're more likely to help others, a pro-social behavior also linked to greater happiness. People who capture grateful thoughts before bed sleep better than those who don't. Why so many positive changes? Because gratitude actually rewires our brains, kickstarting the production of dopamine and serotonin. Like antidepressants, these feel-good neurotransmitters activate the bliss center of the brain, creating feelings of happiness and contentment. This appears to be self-perpetuating. Research suggests that with regular practice, you'll train your prefrontal cortex to better appreciate and retain positive experiences and thoughts, and to deflect the negative ones. Here are a few simple ways to deliberately cultivate that attitude of gratitude. Celebrate minor accomplishments. Think about what you have rather than dwelling on what you don't. Tell the people in your life something you appreciate about them. Tell yourself too. Volunteer, hold a door for a stranger, or simply smile more, and you'll probably feel better, as kindness and giving are connected to gratitude. Similar positive brain changes can occur from regular meditation and mindfulness. Keep a daily gratitude journal using an old-fashioned notebook or a high-tech app. The science is clear. Give gratitude a go. You'll be thankful you did.
November 22nd, 2018 is Thanksgiving Day. And Thanksgiving Day is the one day each year that we individually and collectively commit ourselves to being thankful. One day a year, we assemble as family and friends and we eat way too much. And we watch football. My wife, Lisa, would say we watch way too much football. The food and the football is great, but the reason we assemble one day a year to celebrate Thanksgiving is to allow all of us to stop and reflect on all that we are thankful for in our lives. One day a year, everyone is reflecting on all that they are thankful for, and as a result, all are reflecting the best versions of themselves. One day a year when we intentionally and deliberately stop doing all that we normally do in life and exchange that normal thinking and normal living for a better way of thinking and a better way of living. One day a year, and then Thanksgiving Day is over and Black Friday begins. And so returns our normal way of thinking and normal way of living. The stampede returns at Walmart and at Best Buy. And the stampede of life's worries return as well. Concerns that often occupy our thoughts and overwhelm our thinking. We sometimes, in fact, oftentimes, take for granted the many blessings in our life. Have you ever wondered why? I think it's simple. It's because we only choose to celebrate Thanksgiving one day a year. Only one day out of 365 days. I wonder how different our lives would be if we chose to celebrate Thanksgiving every day. I wonder how much richer and better our relationships would be if we chose to celebrate Thanksgiving every day. A recent study by the University of California answered this question. Their conclusion: thankful people are more likely to be happy and substantially more likely to be successful in life. The truth is, as people, we are not naturally wired to be thankful in our thinking. We are naturally wired to worry, to be anxious, and to fear the future. This natural or normal way of thinking actually limits our ability to be thankful thinkers because our thoughts are completely occupied and focused on the worries in our life. A recent study by U.S. News suggested that our nation's anxiety score was 51, up 5 points from 2017. I don't know about you, but I didn't even know that we had a national anxiety survey and national anxiety score. We do. The survey also confirmed that 68% of Americans are either anxious or somewhat anxious. Finally, the survey confirmed that the average person worries about 1 hour a day. That represents 5 years of the average person's life. The scripture tells us not to worry, not to be anxious, and it also tells us not to be afraid 365 times. But our nature, our natural way of thinking, it takes us there. What if we could choose to exchange this normal and natural way of thinking for a better way of thinking? What if we could become thankful in our thinking? What if we could become thankful in our living? What if we treated every day like Thanksgiving Day? Well, we can. And those who ultimately write their best life stories indeed choose to treat every day like Thanksgiving Day. Today, I implore you to join me in making that choice to celebrate Thanksgiving every single day. I'm Pat Flood. Welcome to Personal and Professional Best. With an interest to encourage all of you today, I invited a resource, Dr. Ike Reighard, to offer you wisdom regarding how you too can choose to invest yourself in the lives of others and at the same time invest in your own well-being. He calls it filling your bucket. Dr. Ike, take over the show.
So I'm excited today to be able to talk to you about filling your bucket. The concept comes from a wonderful book called How Full Is Your Bucket? And it was written by Donald Clifton and Tom Rath. Donald Clifton is the guy who started the Gallup organization. So you're talking about some great science along with just some wonderful positive psychology that can help every one of us. As a matter of fact, it's called emotional intelligence, and that's what filling people's buckets is really all about. So let me give you the concept. They talked about the fact that inside of everyone, there is an invisible bucket that is there. And every day through the different things that happen in our life, that bucket is either being emptied or it's being filled. Through the different things that people say to us, the way they interact with us each and every day is either going to help to fill that bucket or it's going to help to drain your bucket. My guess is right now, if I was in the room with you and I ask every one of you that if you know how it feels to have a full bucket, I bet you every hand would go up. We all know what it's like to feel great and to feel like the people around us appreciate us and encourage us. And so that's what having a full bucket is like. But you know, if I was also in the room with you and I ask you, how many of you know what it's like to feel that you have an empty bucket? I bet you could also raise your hand as well. And that's when people say or they do things that end up actually dipping from our bucket. And let me tell you why that's so important. By the way, you can add a third category, and that is that you're about ready to kick the bucket. Some of you go, now I know exactly how that feels, right? So here's the other part of the concept. So all of us have then this invisible bucket inside of us, and every day it's either being filled or it's being emptied by the different interactions that we're having with people each and every day. But Donald Clifton goes on to say, not only do we have that empty bucket inside of us, but we also have something he calls an invisible dipper. And so this dipper, he says that every day when we're interacting with people, we're either helping to fill their bucket with our invisible dipper, again, by saying or doing things that are positive, that cause them to be able to feel good about themselves, or we're actually dipping from their bucket. And here's why that invisible dipper becomes so important. Because every time we use that dipper to fill someone's bucket, ironically, we end up filling our own bucket. As we make other people feel good, as we have positive interactions with people, what we're actually doing is filling their buckets. And so as we fill their buckets, our bucket gets full as well. Now take it conversely, that when you use your invisible dipper to go over and to dip out of other people's buckets, the irony is that you're also dipping out of your own bucket. And I bet you every one of us know exactly how that feels. You know, the times that we say or we do things that are negative and we bring another person down, or we say hateful things to them, or we know exactly what phrase to be able to use that's really going to trigger that other person in a negative way. And then we walk away and we end up feeling bad about it. Because what we have inadvertently done is when we dip from that other person's bucket, we turned right around and we dipped out of our own bucket. So every day should be an exercise then in emotional intelligence and knowing how do you fill other people's buckets. What are the things that you can be saying or doing that's going to make an impact in their life? And I promise you, if you become one of those people that's actually out filling up buckets, you're going to have more friends, you're going to have more people that are going to be excited about you than you could ever imagine. Because we all need that kind of person in our life that's there to encourage us, they're there to build us up, and they're there to help us move forward in a more positive way. And so for people who have a love language that's called words of affirmation, this is even more important to them, because depending on the type of personality you have, words can have a greater impact on some people than they do on others. But I promise you, everybody wants to be appreciated. Everyone wants to feel like that they really matter and they really count. And when you go out of your way to fill up their bucket, what you're going to do is just fill your bucket up every time as well. Now, Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize winning physicist, said that every day we have about 20,000 interactions that take place in our life. Now, that's staggering to me to think about 20,000 moments in our lives. And he says that we only remember the ones that are really high, and we remember the ones that are really low. And it's important for us to be able to create those highs in other people. As a matter of fact, if you are married, and it's in the book, How Full Is Your Bucket, they quote someone who is really wise in the area of marriage and studies that they did. And they talked about the fact that in every marriage, for every negative comment that you make to your spouse, you have to have 5 positive comments to be able to counteract the one negative comment. So when you dip out of your spouse's or your significant other's bucket and you use that invisible dipper, what you've really done is not just taken one dip out, you're really taking 5 dips out. And so you've got to find positive ways then to be able to build back into their life. And when you do that, it can help to change your marriage. Now, ironically, they also say that you don't want to go over a 13-to-1 ratio. In other words, you make one negative comment. If you go past 13, it all begins to actually work against you. So I guess at that point, we would be entering the suck-up zone, and we're not being really as sincere as we need to be. And so just keep it at 5-to-1. So all of us then have this invisible bucket that's inside of us. And every single day, it's either being emptied or it's being filled. And we all have that invisible dipper as well. And every day, we're either putting into someone's bucket or we're dipping out of their bucket. And it's so important that each and every one of us understand this, and we make absolutely sure that we're going to be the kind of people that are going to fill other people's buckets. And again, I promise you, you begin to take this into consideration, you begin to implement it in your life, and you'll be absolutely stunned at what a difference it will make. It's backed up by science, and I promise you, it's going to make a huge, huge difference in your life. So I'm going to close with filling your buckets to remind you about a guy named Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And after all the things that he went through in his life, and being in a Nazi concentration camp and undergoing all of those horrors, he made this statement. He said, "The last human freedom that you and I have is our ability to choose our attitude in any given set of circumstances." That the last freedom that we have is our ability to choose our attitude in any given set of circumstances. So if you take that idea and you make sure that you're going to always be filling people's buckets, you're going to create so much goodwill. You're going to create so many deposits into that bank account of the people that you have relationships with. And so every day you make the choice. When someone's negative to you, you can be negative back. Or you can find a way to be positive and you can help to change their lives. And so I encourage you, if you do not have the book, go out and get the book, How Full Is Your Bucket, and make it a part of this Thanksgiving season that you can go out and you can make an eternal difference in someone else's life just by encouraging them and you developing what I call thankful thinking. So, congratulations on being a bucket filler, and make sure you're not dipping from anybody else's bucket. Good to see you today.
Hey, Dr. Ike, thank you for being here today, and thanks for being a part of the Personal Professional Best program. I also wanted to, in the spirit of the program, I wanted to thank you for the work that you've done in the last 20 years to fill my bucket.
Well, thank you.
You've been one of those very, very special people. You've been a coach, you've been a motivator, you've been a confidant, you've been my pastor, And more importantly, you've been one of my very, very best friends. You have been one of those people who have filled my bucket over the years. And as a result of doing that, you filled the buckets of all those folks that are in my life, Lisa and my boys, all the folks that I work with, extended family, neighbors, friends, even those people in traffic. You put so much in that it has enabled me to live my life with a spirit of thankful thinking, which leads to thankful living, which ultimately leads to personal, professional best. So again, thanks for being here today. Thanks for sharing that sermon, that communication. The first time I heard you do that was about 15 years ago. Right. And I remember sitting in the audience listening to it and thinking, God, this is so easy. It makes so much sense.
It really does. And
life would be so much better for everyone, right? If people just lived in that spirit. And so the question, the logical question is if it really does benefit everyone else's life and the person who's actually doing it, why is it more people don't do it?
I think it's because we have to push against our own natural tendencies. And our own natural tendency is to look out for number one, to look out for yourself. And this is a switch in perspective and mindset that you begin to value others as much as you value yourself. And you look at them with a different degree of respect, and you look at them with a different degree of wanting to bring dignity to their life. And what better way to do that than to be able to speak life into them. And that's why filling your bucket to me is such a logical thing to do, but boy, do people struggle with it because everybody gets caught up in the disease of what's in it for me. And ironically, there's plenty in it for you because when you're filling their buckets, in turn, you're filling your own bucket and you're making the world a lot better place.
Yeah, when we wake up every day, what's true is that we have our own stuff in every facet of our life, whether it's in our relationship life, our health life, or those that are in our lives and their health, right? And then we also have our financial lives, our business lives, and all of that stuff kind of weighs us down. And we focus on all of our stuff, self, right? Serving self before others. Our mission here at Supreme is to serve others before self. And we do that intentionally. We share with people to do that intentionally so they will fill other people's buckets. Who are the one or two folks in your life, in your story, that have intentionally and deliberately filled your bucket, and what's the impact been?
Well, we can start by looking at the person that's across from me because that's what you've done for me. You know, you took a guy that had a background that was strictly in the church world, and you gave me the opportunity to become the chief people officer for a phenomenal company. And when you opened that door, it opened the door for me then to be able to speak to other companies all around the world. That's what it gave me the opportunity to do. So you filled my bucket by giving me the opportunity to be able to exercise my gift, and the only gift that I have is talking. And so you've given me that opportunity. But if I go back to two people who were fundamental in my life, one of them would be Zig Ziglar. Because I read Zig's book called See You at the Top, and it challenged me. My first goal was to go get a college education. I was 23 years old when I started on that quest, and that book motivated me. And so he filled my bucket through his writings. A lot of different ways that you fill people's buckets. Sometimes it's that personal interaction, but sometimes it's someone at a distance. And I never dreamed in a million years that I would get to know him and become friends with him to the extent that when Zig passed away a few years ago, I was the pastor that delivered his eulogy.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so very close to me. And then Dr. Gene Hendricks, the dean at Mercer University, who allowed me to come into Mercer University on her name because my name wouldn't get me anywhere, trust me.
That's a great story. I will invite you back to tell the whole story, but she was very special. She took a chance on you.
Oh, she absolutely did. And she, more than anything, she encouraged me and she filled my bucket by telling me, Ike, even though you've been a C&D student all the way through your high school career and you flunked out of college the first time you tried to go, you can do this. And I mean, she told me, you will do this.
You know, I remember hearing that story, Ike, and the one thing that we tell folks here is that, you know, the world talks a lot about fair, and relationships often aren't fair if they're really special, right? Because filling other people's buckets is something that you decide to do, you choose to do. But the fair part may be that they don't deserve their bucket to get filled, and yet we do it anyway. And Jean Hendricks, she did that for you, because on fairness, maybe you don't get into Mercer University,
Right.
but then she made a choice to be, quote unquote, unfair in a very positive way, depositing in your life. And I'm so happy she did, because she gave the world a beautiful, beautiful gift as a result of it.
Well, I tell you what, she was amazing. I asked her one time, Pat, she didn't go the traditional route. She didn't marry, she didn't have children, and yet she was one of the happiest, most fulfilled people that I've ever known. And I asked her, what makes you so happy? What do you do? And she said, for me, it's giving a little bit of myself away each and every day.
Amazing.
That was her mentality, and she gave to me in that way, and took a chance on me. And my gift back to her was when I finished that 4-year degree. I graduated magna cum laude. When I would have settled for Lord have mercy, magna cum laude was pretty cool, and that was my way of giving back to her and thanking her for trusting me and investing in me. So she filled my bucket, but hopefully I helped to fill hers as well, because as an educator, there's nothing you like more than seeing life transformation.
And you did her funeral as well.
I did.
Right, so because you've done Zig's and you've done Jean's, and you said I filled your bucket, I guess you'll get to do mine as well.
Actually, you'll probably be doing mine. So you're on the list to help give the eulogy there, buddy.
All right, listen, so if everyone here today, we have hundreds of people,
Yeah, we
Dr.
do.
Ike, that have assembled to hear this message today about thankful thinking and how that leads to thankful living, filling others' buckets.
Right.
If everyone here today made the choice intentionally to fill all of the buckets of the people that are currently in their lives and cross paths with them today, what do you think the impact would be?
Well, I can do it for you mathematically. If I fill 2 buckets today, and then the 2 people that I filled their buckets, they go out and fill someone else's bucket, and you continue to extrapolate that, you have exponential growth, and after 10 days, over 1,000 buckets would be filled. So just imagine, you've got so many people that are watching today. Imagine if all of those people made that choice, and then you had that kind of response, it'd be life-changing.
It would be life-changing. And I'm going to encourage all of us, every single one of us that are here today, to intentionally, before you leave today, to fill the bucket that's at your office, so that you can then finish today, and you can go and then personally fill the buckets of not only those people that have filled yours, but of so many others, right? So we can do the math that Ike is talking about and make the world a better place. Yes, last question I got for you. The scripture tells us, do not worry. It tells us to not be anxious.
Right.
It tells us to do not fret. And then it tells us a few times to not be afraid.
Right.
It seems all of these conditions, they drive the mindset from thankful thinking to unthankful thinking. Yeah, because we get afraid and we worry and we're angst, and as a result, it's hard to be in a position of being thankful. How do we change that?
I think there's some very practical ways that you can do it. Number one, you can learn to measure your life by looking backward rather than always looking forward. There's this mental construct that we have in psychology called the horizon effect. And of course, the horizon is where the earth meets the sky, theoretically. But the truth is, the earth never meets the sky. And so once you get to where you thought the horizon would be, it's just as far away again. And for so many people in their life, that's the way their desires are. There's always something more. There's always one more letter you can add, to your car. There's always a better neighborhood. There's always a better country club. There's always this and there's always that. And when you live that way and you're always going forward, you don't have the appreciation that you have when you look backward and you see how far you've come from. And part of thankful thinking is make sure that you're turning around and you're looking back. Another simple step is never allow your memories to be greater than your dreams. Because the day that your memories are greater than your dreams, you're dead in the water. And you could say, well, just a moment ago you were saying you ought to look backward. I think that's called perspective. And the perspective is you need to have something that's drawing you into the future. There needs to be things that encourage you. That's a part of thankful thinking. And then also learn to focus on your contributions and not just your rewards in life. If you really want to be thankful, don't be worried about what's in it for me. Am I going to get my fair share?
Just fill buckets.
Fill the buckets. It makes all the difference in the world. And understand that comparison and contentment can never coexist in the same mind space. It's interesting that in the Bible it says the reason there are quarrels and there's fussing among you is because you're always comparing to what someone else has. And when you're doing that, there's always going to be somebody that's got a little bit more. There's always going to be someone who has something shinier and newer. And if that's what you do, then you're never going to be satisfied. And thankful thinking knows that you want to make sure that you're not comparing all the time. And then, there's a thing that a lot of the younger people talk about called FOMO. And, the FOMO is all about a fear of missing out. Fear of missing out. And that fear sometimes is so unfounded. And there's another acrostic for fear that Zig always used, and he talked about that the word fear stood for false evidence appearing real. Do you realize how many people compare their life to Instagram and to what other people are doing? And it's not even real.
It's photoshopped.
It's photoshopped, absolutely. Right. And so if you want to be thankful in your thinking, you learn to be content with what you've got. And always, lastly, make your gratitude bigger than the greed side. All of us have some greed in us and things that we want. But understand something, that whatever you magnify in your life is going to get bigger. So if you magnify what you don't have, then that's going to grow bigger in your mind. But if you learn to magnify what you do have, then you're going to be extraordinarily happy. And there's the Jewish tradition was really smart. It said, live your life in a day-tight compartment. So for the Jewish people, the new day started at 6 o'clock at night, because they knew the mindset that you go to bed with is going to be the mindset you're going to wake up with that next morning. Every married couple knows that particular routine. And so every day, live within your day-tight compartment and be thankful for the day that you have. And as Zig used to say, if you don't think today's important, just try missing it. So that's the truth.
I love it. Hey, Dr. Ike, thanks again for being a part of the PNPB program. Thanks for pouring into my life, for filling my bucket over the years so that I can help fill other buckets over the years. And thank you for today reminding all of us that when we live a thankful life, a life where we are thankful in our thinking, then we'll live a life that's thankful, and we will pour ourselves into filling the buckets of other people in life, which will come back to fill our own, and will make the world a better place. Thanks for being here today, my friend.
Glad to do it.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Boom.
Thank you, Dr. Ike, for the reminder of how important it is to fill the buckets of all the people in our life, and for reminding us that thinking and living our life in this way fills our buckets as well. And Dr. Ike, personally, Patrick Flood wants to thank you for filling his bucket. Today is about celebrating Thanksgiving every day. It's about thanking the people in our lives who have filled our bucket. I already thanked Dr. Ike. I have two more. Allow me to share who they are and what they've done. First, my pops, also known as the Source. In early November, 30 members of the Flood family assembled at my home in Milton, Georgia. The occasion was my stepmom's, Mama Flood's, 80th birthday. While Lisa and I were the host, the real host was the patriarch of my family, my pops. As we assembled to break bread, I looked around the room at all 30 who were in attendance. It was then that I realized that my 81-year-old pops had invested in filling the bucket of every individual in the room, including my own. And all of us are better as a result of his investment. My pops is my kind of guy. He's a thankful thinker. He lives every day like it's Thanksgiving Day. The room was filled with 30 individuals with their own life stories, and every one of them was scarred by a season or two in their life, including my pops. He lost his pops at 11. He lost his son, my brother, when he was 26. He lost his first wife, my mom at 28. He remarried Mama Flood and inherited 2 daughters. He lost one of them 10 years ago. That was about the same time that he lost a fair majority of his wealth. But there he was, at 81, celebrating Thanksgiving Day on November 2nd, and being celebrated by the 30 in attendance whose buckets he has filled. Pops, you are clearly the man. Thank you for filling my bucket and so many others along the way. The other person in my life is my person. That's Lisa Flood, formerly Lisa Andrews. She's been filling my bucket since I met her at 16. I've been married to Lisa for 34 years, but we've been soulmates since eternity began. Lisa's been my best friend. She's been the best wife. She's been the best mom, the best daughter-in-law, the best sister, the best aunt, and now the best mother-in-law. And Lily, her preferred name as a new grandparent. She's incredibly talented, an artist, a decorator. She's also a financier, and she's CEO of Flood Enterprises. She is my person. She fills my bucket every single day, and she still is, in my eyes, the hottest babe in the room. I love you, Lisa Flood. I always have, and I always will, forever and ever and ever. Lisa Flood. I encourage you all right now to list your person or persons, record in writing who they are and what they have done to fill your bucket, and put their name in the bucket. I encourage all of you today and going forward to fill the buckets in your office and celebrate Thanksgiving every day. I also encourage all of you to make the choice today to exchange normal and natural way of thinking and living for something better. Make the choice to celebrate Thanksgiving every single day. Make the choice to become a thankful thinker. If you do, you'll live your life filling buckets, including your own. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Stay tuned. We're about to play smart.